Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here, as always, for another episode. And as I always say, wherever in the world you're listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on, again, thank you guys so much for all the support, the messages, the feedback, all the things that you've sent my way, sent the show's way. Keep that coming. Truly appreciate it and love that you guys are joining us, whether it's you've been here for 4 years, whether you just started listening to us. I always appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm so excited to bring this episode to you because I know so many of you love talking defense, and I love how many of the conversations I get to have with you as listeners or with guests who are all in on defense. And we're going to really get into kind of two phases of defense here, the implementation of a defense, but also the implementation of a defensive mindset and getting guys to buy into playing defense and what that looks like in terms of the buy-in process, what our guest likes to run defensively, how he works on it in practice, how he adjusts based on the different offensive schemes that are thrown that way. So really defensive heavy, which is great. I love it. I know you as listeners love it. So we're going to jump right into it here with my guest, head men's basketball coach at South Walton High School. Very happy to be joined by Coach Shafer Martin today. Coach, really appreciate you being able to come on here and talk some defense with us today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show. Listen to a few different episodes and just enjoy what you do. And I love talking hoops and trying to surround myself with others that do as well. So I'm glad to be on the show.
Awesome. Coach, let's start with your journey, your basketball journey, your coaching journey. Where is this great game of basketball taking you that's ultimately had you wound up at South Walton High School?
Yeah, so I'm like a lot of people. I picked up a ball probably at 3 or 4 years old and never really put it down. Played growing up my whole life and really started getting into the game probably later towards middle school and early high school. My dad's a longtime middle school coach. He's coached 20 plus years of middle school basketball and so just being around the game a lot growing up. And trying to get involved as much as I could. And so moving here to Florida, I'm originally from Oklahoma and moved to Florida going into middle school and then ended up actually playing at South Walton High School for my high school career, which was a good experience and ended up being able to play a couple of years of junior college basketball at it used to be Faulkner State Community College. Now it's Coastal Alabama South. Just outside of Mobile, Alabama. And so played a couple of years there. It wound up getting hurt, kind of just helped out as an assistant on the student side of things. And then immediately got plugged in with South Walton as I was finishing up my undergraduate degree, just helping out here and there where I could and getting involved with practices and trying to scout a little bit for them. And ended up taking a middle school coaching job at Emerald Coast Middle School, which is here our local feeder middle school, and spent 1 year there and got an opportunity to either take a GA job at University of West Florida in Pensacola or become a JV coach at South Walton. And I thought for my career, I thought it'd be great to just kind of jump in as a coach. And so I ended up taking the South Walton JV job. And just a few short days later, the head coach at that time had called and told me that he was resigning and they were going to give me the head job. So,
wow.
So it kind of worked out perfectly. Something I really wanted, being a player from this high school, to always come back and coach. I knew I wanted to do that late in high school. And that was always my dream. So, I'm in a perfect situation and happy where I'm at.
So talk about what was that like as you get the call that said, all right, hey, you're the guy now. We want you in on the varsity position. What was going through your mind mentally as that was kind of laid out to you?
Yeah, I was pretty clueless, if I'm being honest. We were at the middle school that 1 year that I had. I probably have the weakest resume you could ever put together. We were 2-10. My first year as a head coach of the middle school. And yeah, I got the call to be the head coach. It was about 5 days prior to our summer season. So in Florida, just like other states, we get pretty much the full month of June to compete in practices and team camps and things like that. And so I found out just a short time period before June basketball started. So I really didn't have any kind of idea or game plan of the direction we wanted to do offensively or defensively. And I wanted to make sure that we solidified having, good assistant coaches and things like that. And so we retained one of the assistant coaches that was there the year prior, and he had also helped with the girls program. And so he kind of helped, but it was a baptism by fire for sure.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. And you just kind of jump right in. You talk about learning by experience, right? Learning
Yeah.
on the go. It's like you're trying to build the plane while you're flying it, sort of
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
That's crazy. Coach, one of the things I know that you have some experience that you can talk about is the effort that goes into rebuilding a program. And I wanted to give you some time to kind of talk about the process of kind of rebuilding a program. What went into rebuilding? What was it, South Walton specifically, and getting that program rebuilt and putting in a new culture there?
Yeah, I think for me, the initial, I would say, improvement of the culture of South Walton basketball was really just kind of driven for my passion for this school and for the program. Like I said, having played here, and my older brother played here, my younger brother played here, so we've had so much time invested into this school and the basketball program itself. And so I always said growing up that, I didn't think that anybody loved South Walton basketball more than I did. And so when I got the job, I just tried to kind of carry that mindset over into it as a head coach. And, almost with the mindset of, even if what I'm teaching you may not be great, hopefully the way that I'm presenting it and trying to sell this thing, hopefully that's motivation enough. So initially it was just trying to let my personal passion just kind of, show and reflect onto the guys, and try to get them to just kind of buy into something bigger than themselves. And really the first like basketball thing that we started to do was we just had to embrace and just learn how to compete. We actually, so that summer, the first summer I was involved, we had a joint practice at a school over in our area. And after that practice, it was said that our program was the softest program they had ever played against.
Oh, wow.
And it was good. It was good for me to hear. It was good for, a lot of our players here, just like anywhere else. A lot of our guys have a mindset sometimes that maybe they're better than they are. And so it kind of just hit home and just reflected on, okay, this is priority number one is we've got to be tough. And so trying to get the guys to learn how to compete early on was a huge piece, and still is. It's always about competing, and every program talks about that in some capacity. And then along with learning how to compete together was trying to embrace that kind of family mindset again. Put the team first. What does sacrificing yourself for the betterment of the team look like? And along with that also had to come extreme discipline. From little things to sometimes bigger culture things. From the first day, we said, we had a lot of guys who show up late for practice, and rolling in at a summer practice at 10:05 when we're supposed to start at 10. And so,
yeah.
so we just started locking the doors. We'd lock the doors and they'd come knock in, and we'd tell them go home and come back again tomorrow. And we had a few practices with maybe only 6 or 7 guys for those first couple of weeks, and over time, people started showing up and, making sure they're getting there and doing what they were supposed to. But, that was a big piece as well. It was just trying to instill some discipline.
Yeah, it sounds like for some of your players, maybe they didn't realize, what the expectations were in terms of being successful at the high school level, what it meant to be, the privilege rather of playing at the high school level, and what it took to compete at the highest levels. And it sounds like one of like your priorities, or one of the things that you really focused on, was making sure that your guys understood the expectations and understood, like, if we're going to be, not the softest team there, if we're going to play at the level that we need to be successful, there's certain standards that everybody has to buy into and be held accountable for.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and just, again, the culture of our school, or the basketball program specifically, our school's been around for about 22 years. We've had a couple years here and there where we've had some success, but it's never really been a big basketball school. Right. And in the 2 years prior to us taking over the program, they won 4 games the year before we got here, and I think 7 or 8 the year before that, and then another single digit, 4, 5, 6 games, something like that. So for the 3 previous years to me getting the job, it was really just kind of, I don't want to say down in the dumps, but just not great, and and so a lot of those players, it was just it didn't mean a whole lot to be a part of the program, right. And it wasn't like you had 50 kids at tryouts or anything like that. You might have 30 kids and everybody makes the team, and you got 15, 16 kids on a roster. And so there was no push for that extra competition for where it needed to be. And so it's been cool to get it there.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I can speak to, being in those situations where you only got, 25, 30, girls in my case. And it's like, well, you kind of have to take everyone, and whether the girls show it or not, they kind of know, like, hey, if I just try out, I'm going to be on the team. There's not that
right.
extra gear that I have to get to when I'm competing with, 45, 50 other girls. So to even have that competition where guys know, like, hey, I got to earn my spot, I'm sure even that alone has to make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, we've kind of scaled back, and I know every coach might have a different concept there, but we've scaled it down to where we pretty much have it set in stone that we're going to keep 12 guys on any given roster, even down to our freshman level team now. We'll make cuts. We always say your goal is to try to be in that top 12. Because all of us know as coaches, when you get into game time, and especially late in the year or in close games, your bench, you're probably going, 8 guys, maybe, 7. Like the bench gets real thin pretty quick late in games. And, and so, and that was always a part of that, like, culture building was, if you've got 7 or 8 guys sitting on the bench that don't play a ton, they're high school kids, even at the college level. And I'm sure at the pro level, you still see guys that just get real unhappy with their situation really quick. And, work ethic at practice goes down, and engagement during games goes down. So us trying to, like you said, kind of create that competitiveness within the program to make the top 12, to be in the top 12. And then once you're there, then it's the next level of competition to earn some minutes. And so that's been a huge thing for us, is our bench culture is, like I said, keeping it to 12 guys, and, getting 4 or 5 maybe that are just locked in as role guys, and trying to help from that side of things. So it's been good.
Definitely. Coach, I'm sure one of the things that has also really helped as we transition to our topic is the buy-in that your guys have had on the defensive side. And so I want to start as we kind of move into this topic of the getting that defensive mindset into your team. Talk about what went into getting your players to buy into defense. I know some guys are going to be all in, no matter what a coach says, and give it their all. But also, I know from experience, as you do, that defense isn't sometimes the most enjoyable thing, and some guys or some girls aren't really all in on that. So what went into getting your guys to get excited and buy into defense, and how did your players know that defense was going to be a priority from day one?
Yeah. So a couple different things there. So I'll say this: the defense as being a priority number one necessarily wasn't our first goal, or at least mine. Certain as a player, I was a pretty good scorer, and so defensively I wasn't really ever too focused on it as a player. And so leading into it as a coach, I kind of let some of our assistants take ownership of the defensive side of things while I was, trying to establish some kind of offensive culture and things like that. And so it really wasn't up until the last couple of years that I got a good taste of it. And so now I'm like full buy-in. So now it's almost the opposite, where I want to be all about defense all the time. And so it's been cool for me to kind of go through that process as a coach, just flip sides of the basketball. But, for us, I think initially it was almost forced in a way to get buy-in. Again, talking about your role on a team and what your minutes might look like. We knew as coaches, and players could tell you the same thing, that the ultimate prize is minutes. And so we started telling guys it's a non-negotiable that if you don't play hard on the defensive side of the floor, you're just not going to play. And again, early on, we had to do that. And there were times where, maybe we had some guys that were in that, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 spot of the bench where they were playing over guys who were better just because they would play hard and they would do what we ask. And, early on, again, it was, there wasn't a ton of pressure to win. Like I said, they had 4 wins the year prior. And so it was good in a way to almost be experimental where,
Sure.
sometimes we could sacrifice, not the whole game, but certain times throughout a game for sure, where we could sacrifice, having a top scorer out on the floor because they refused to play defense and let a role guy step in and try to earn an opportunity. And eventually, when you're a high level basketball player and you keep having to get set on the bench because you're not guarding, eventually that's going to be some motivation itself. And so that was a big thing, honestly, early on, was just controlling the minutes based off of how hard you played. And then from there, it started to turn into where once guys saw, the effort level that we expected, then they started seeing success. And, whether it's on the defensive side of the floor, offensive side, once your kids start seeing it's working and all their efforts are benefiting them and the team, then just, again, naturally, like, they're going to start taking ownership of that. And so I think once they saw, hey, it's a lot of fun to play defense when you do it the right way and you can kind of control the game, then we started getting a lot more buy-in. And, now it's just kind of become who we are. The last couple of years we've held teams. Last year, I think we averaged 43 a game is what we allowed. The year prior to that was 45 and a half. So now it's just in our DNA of what we do.
Well, let me ask you about then, this is kind of a somewhat of a tricky question here, but for coaches sometimes could be a bit of a challenge maybe to assess whether a guy doesn't really know how to lock up a guy or play defensively versus just not being willing to do it. How do you kind of, or how did you, I suppose, rather, kind of assess when you could see like, okay, you're not doing this because you don't really know exactly what you're supposed to do versus you're not doing it because you do know what to do, but you're just not doing it. How do you kind of be able to tell the difference between those two situations?
Yeah, I think it's just putting the guys in as much live play scenarios as possible with some kind of challenge or again, competition involved. We wear out small sided games in any capacity of what we do, but when you're getting a lot of reps in and at high intensity, it's really easy to kind of see who's working hard and who's not. For the guys that it may look like they're working hard, but they're in the wrong spot or just not having a lot of success. I think that's where it's kind of easier to just see like, okay, they just don't understand, where the helper's coming from, or they don't understand on a slot drive that this is what we're going to do. So, again, just being around our guys as much as we are, we do get the benefit. We have PE classes here throughout the day. And so we get to see our guys every day for an hour in that setting. And then when the season starts, we get the additional after school practice. And so, again, just putting our guys in a ton of small sided live period types of situations, they're kind of forced to play at game speed. And again, our top guys, we generally know what we should expect from them on defense. And then again, it goes into that kind of discipline thing, when you see them taking half reps in practice and things like that, just making sure that we're trying to hold them accountable. And, whether that's, we call them out, talk to them on the side after practice, maybe a quick little punishment for them or the team during practice. Again, usually we try to eliminate that as much as we can. But just putting the guys in a ton of live situations, I think, is the easiest way to kind of decipher who can and who can't, and then, like you said, who's just not willing to.
Yeah. The competition. I talked to so many guests, and I'm just so glad to hear you say that. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit. Just the competitive nature and the situations, whether it's in a practice situation or in like the PE class type situation. Always get your guys competing really kind of shows who's really willing to get down there and do what it takes to win versus, those who are just going to try and go through the motions. And
Yeah.
it's great to hear, people like yourself just talk about how big competition seems to be in small-sided games and all those things that you run.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and trying to, just in every aspect that we do, trying to make sure that that's what goes on. And,
Hmm.
and then I'm sure we'll get into it as well, but there's also the side of things of kind of go along with not willing to is also not buying into what the team
Yeah.
concept of what we're trying to do. And so that's always something that we've got to look out for as well.
So what do you like to run now on defensively? You talked about, holding teams now to the low 40s, I think is what you mentioned. So talk us through what you like to run philosophically on defense and what was the installation process of that?
Yeah, so we really found a good thing with we run no middle man to man defense almost exclusively. Early on, like I said, my first couple of years as the head coach, we felt like the easiest thing to implement as far as man defense goes was pack line, and so we put in a pack line defense, and I think we gave up more paint touches than any program in America. Like we just couldn't figure it out, and so then we evolved into we ran some zone stuff a couple of years. We ran some junk, little cover, triangle and two, and trying to just slow the game down and just like I said, junk it up a little bit. And so really, it wasn't up until like I said, about 2 years ago, we got really invested into no middle defense. And I'm a Kansas basketball fan, and so watching the Big 12 and when you had Baylor and Texas Tech and these guys that just they guarded with so much tenacity and effort and guys just flying around. That's kind of what sold me on the no middle concept. And so I was like, we gotta figure out more about this. And so, yeah, that's been our thing. Like I said, almost exclusively for the last 2 years. And it's been good. I try to watch the game as much as possible and pull from different concepts of what people might do and try to get it to fit our needs for our.
So with the no middle then, so I'm just curious just to kind of pick your brain a little bit about it. What did you see as kind of the faults that you had or the execution that wasn't there with the pack line that you were able to kind of clean up and kind of rectify by putting in a no middle defense?
Yeah, I think for our guys when we were playing pack line, for one, just our body position. Often instead of keeping like your true back to the basket or things like that, our body position just constantly kept getting opened up to where our shoulders were opening up to the floor to allow the ball to drive to the nail. And most any coach will tell you, you get the ball to the nail, like good things are going to happen. You get ball reversals, good things are going to happen. And so I think that was a challenge for us was just really learning how to get proper body position to guard the ball in a one-on-one situation, and then also just help side and even being in gaps. I think it was a hard concept for our guys. Again, trying to figure it out on the fly. Like I said, getting the job a few days before a summer season starting and things like that. And we probably didn't do the best job of teaching it, but I just felt like for us, where our help came from and almost like weak body position, I think were the two biggest things of why we went away from pack line. In our mindset, no middle is a little bit more of an aggressive, we're coming at you more of type of thing. Trying to force guys sidelines and baselines and we wear out where help come from, help the helper, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to and really making a full 5-man team defense.
So now when you were putting in the no middle, kind of talk us through then what was the process of teaching it, installing it? How did you kind of get your guys to understand the concepts that you wanted and kind of build up their understanding of the defense?
Yeah. So again, like I said, it started just trying to be a student of the game as best as I could. Watching. I know everybody's probably seen. I think the accounts like Hoop Vision 68 or something like that. That guy's always doing film breakdowns of programs, and so watching those films on Baylor and Texas Tech of what their no middle concepts looked like. They're showing game clips, practice clips, talking you through it. And then also I stumbled upon a college coach at Centenary College in Louisiana that basically had a program that he was selling, where he's teaching you the basics of no middle, all the principles and philosophies of it, and then also along with that, getting drills and small sided games and competition play, game film breakdown. And so really it was just trying to educate myself and our coaches, educate ourselves on what no middle truly was. And then as far as implementing it goes, again, just using small sided games situations. So even as basic as one-on-one principles, how do you guard the ball depending on where the ball is on the floor? And every day putting guys into drills of, if it's one-on-one from the wing, making sure that, our nose is on high side shoulder, we've got our feet angled to the corners, and, making guys have to guard live ball, from that spot. And then we just build off of it. We try to get kind of creative with our drills of what we do. So, if we're going to work on a wing drive, then we'll add a weak side corner offensive player and a guy at the help line, and just try to force that. Okay, on a baseline drive, I've got to meet outside the lane, and just force that action within itself on the defensive side of the floor. And we just wear it out. We get a ton of reps in. We'll go both sides of the court and just really high paced, high energy.
Yeah, and with that, so is that a big shift in terms of like the amount of time dedicated into a practice on defense than perhaps your guys were used to? Was this something that your guys had to get used to, if the amount of, work that they were doing, whether it was working on defensive skills or, this small-sided games, this competitiveness, was this a shift for them that they had to kind of understand that, practices are going to look a lot more like this than maybe how they had previously?
Yeah, absolutely. And a part of that kind of goes in also with what we do offensively. It took us a couple of years to really find our niche on what we were doing on the offensive end. And so once we kind of found a basic offense with, a few wrinkles and things here and there, a couple of set plays, it kind of allowed us naturally to spend less time on the offensive end. But yeah, a couple of years ago, that team, those guys probably still talk about it and hate me for it, but we almost exclusively spent the entire month of September and most of the month of October on defense only. Like
Really?
we guarded every day. Rarely did live 5-on-5 full court. A lot of it was small sided games, 3-on-3, 4-on-4s in the half court, a ton of reps, and all defense. And again, there's always some kind of competition involved, whether it's, you got to get, 2 or 3 stops, or even today, what we did, you got to get a stop and a score to get out of the drill on the defensive side. And so it just kind of allowed us, again, being established offensively, it allowed us to have more time to focus on things on the defensive end. But yeah, it's been a pretty big shift where I would, in a 2-hour practice, defense is probably almost an hour of it. We spent a lot of time focusing on that.
In your practices, kind of continuing on with that, what are you kind of, are there certain criteria or certain things that you're looking for in terms of, okay, this is something where we have to make sure that we have this down in terms of our defensive principles, and if and I'm looking for this specifically so I know what I have to redirect or reteach? How do you kind of assess how they're doing defensively in a practice, and whether or not you need to kind of stop and reteach or go over something, or whether you need to kind of have them sort of play through it and make corrections on their own? What's that kind of process of sort of figuring out how they're doing defensively in the middle of a practice?
Yeah. So for us, I'll just get real basic. Like for us
Sure.
in our no middle concepts, again, we're always, every closeout, we try to have our inside hand above the ball, closing out, making sure we've got our nose on the guy's high side shoulder, especially when the ball's in the outer thirds. We're pretty firm on, in the past, I'm not going to say we're going to hold to it, but in the past, we don't switch. We tried to not allow our guys to switch unless it's an absolute have to. For the 98% of the time, we're going to fight over the top of ball screens and off ball screen. Like we try to have those certain non-negotiables within our defense that we expect the guys to do all the time. And then from there, we just kind of take those common principles and every possession we're looking for those things. So regardless of what's going on the offensive side of the floor,
Mm-hmm.
We're not afraid to stop a drill as soon as we see a guy go under a ball screen. And sometimes we'll let it play out. And again, today we're working on the same thing. We're kind of getting back into reintroduction of no middle and our concepts. And we had a possession today where, we don't have shot clocks. So we've got a possession going 35, 40 seconds, and we get a ball screen set in the middle third, on ball defender goes underneath, and they hit the three at the top of the key. And now they've got to reset the drill. And so, we talk about it all the time about, for us, trying to do the right thing. And for us, the right thing is to fight over the top. And so I think, it goes into stopping practice often to teach. I think sometimes we can kind of get lost in the flow of the game, and you just want to get a lot of reps in and have them keep playing. And sometimes that is good, but especially right now, preseason stuff, and really in season when you're doing scouting report stuff, I think it's crucial to stop possessions and talk through it, because more times than not, if you've got one kid that's doing it, there's others on the floor that, either have forgotten or are also going to be in that same situation. So most of what you're saying will apply to everybody. So just being comfortable with stopping practice throughout as needed.
Yeah, and from what you said too, it's not as if you are, stopping it and speaking for minutes on end necessarily. You're speaking on it, probably
Right.
giving them some, things about, hey, here's some adjustments, or this is what we need to do, and then keep going at it, where it's not completely disrupting the complete flow of everything by
Right.
spending tons of time talking. Like they kind of know what the expectations are for your defense. They know what they're
Yeah.
doing, and if they're not doing it, you can stop it, whatever the consequence may be, or the conversation you need to have real quick, and then like have them, go right back at it. So things
Yeah.
aren't getting, completely stop start necessarily.
Absolutely. But, most of the time those conversations are brief, 15, 20 seconds. And a lot of times, we challenge our guys, like you said, trying to learn how to buy in. The kids have to know the defense. And so a lot of times when you see that situation where, again, we get 40 seconds of breakdown, a lot of times we'll just stop it and we'll ask the kid what happened, what'd you do, like, and most of the time they know. At this point they'll tell you, I went under on a ball screen, or I switched and got stuck off of a dribble handoff, and so whatever it might be, that's just a brief conversation.
So with that idea, you brought up something that I'm really glad you did, because I want to bring that up, because we're talking about that idea of knowing the defense, right? You talk about the mental side of things, and I think that for any really successful team, guys have to be able to obviously communicate and be able to correct one another and be able to teach one another. And your guys really have to make sure that they're having those conversations, because obviously in a game, you're not going to be the one playing on the court. Your guys need to be the ones talking. Your guys need to be the ones holding each other accountable.
Yeah.
So, talk us through what that is like, about getting your guys to make sure that they're communicating, whether it's, on the court defensively, whether they're talking about helping each other, correcting each other, teaching each other. How did you kind of build that communication defensive mindset within your team?
Yeah, I think again, it's just trying to push them into learning how to compete together. One of the reasons why I love, and I tell anybody, one of the reasons why I love the no middle defense is, to me, it's truly a team defense. Like, everybody's got to be involved. When you're forcing the ball down a baseline, you have to have two or three guys helping you at all times. And so I think for us, again, culturally, and along with that communication side of things, it's almost a non-negotiable. Like, if you're running no middle, and you don't have guys that are communicating where help's coming from, or communicating on a scramble, or a baseline slot kick or something, like, you're going to be in trouble really fast. And so having our guys see the success in when we don't communicate versus when we do is big. And again, trying to educate them in those small 15, 20-second conversations. A lot of times I'll hear our guys saying the exact same phrases that we as coaches use, and they'll say them to each other. And whether they just don't know any other way to put it or not, they're listening when we have those conversations. And so when you get more of repetitions from hearing it and learning
Sure.
it, I think that kind of handles that communication piece as well. But again, that's communication is another thing where, like effort, it's almost a non-negotiable. Like if you're not going to talk on defense and you're not going to be calling out screens or, knowing where help, communicating that you've got help or whatever it might be, you just won't play. And, again, sometimes it's a little aggressive or harsh. And again, sometimes we may sacrifice having our top talent on the floor, but it's instilling that I've got to be bought into what we're doing to get minutes. And so that's a big thing as well.
Well, that's a huge point that you bring up. Like, if guys aren't, communicating, if guys aren't talking, as a coach, say, all right, if this isn't what you're gonna do, that defense is a huge identity for our team. You can't be on the court if you aren't willing to talk and communicate and do the things that are necessary on defense. And I think as coaches, it's one of the hardest things to do when it's our best players, because we know that if we take them out, we're going to potentially in the short term be in trouble in that game or that situation. But in the long term, if you're a coach who really believes that, hey, we are a defensive team and this is something we hang our hat on, you can't sacrifice that for maybe the short-term benefit of a guy who's good offensively but isn't buying into the defensive concepts that you said as a coach were really important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, that comes into that kind of discipline thing.
Yeah.
Is if you're not willing to do it now, especially in a practice, how can we rely on you to do that late in the game? And especially when we're trying to compete for a district title or a regional game or what have you. When things get tough, are you still going to do it? How do you respond when things don't go your way is a big part of that as well. And so, having and it's go time. We always use the phrase, like, some guys think they've got like a light switch and they can just turn it on and off whenever they want. And it's great in theory, but it's not reality. And so,
No.
yeah, just trying to get them to, again, just be a little bit more disciplined in doing that.
On that concept of that defensive mindset, and we kind of touched on this a little bit briefly, and you did mention this as well. But I think one of the challenges that coaches can sometimes have when they want their guys to be better individually on defense is, getting guys to be put in situations when they're doing training or skill work or individual work that really focuses on defensive concepts. I think a lot of times coaches like to do and players like to do a lot of the offensive work, getting shots up, working on ball handling, working on things of that nature. But to be a truly great defensive team, individually, players are going to need to spend time working on defensive skills, whether it's footwork or, closeouts, whatever the case may be that players are working on. So what sort of work do you kind of do with guys individually that help them with their defensive skill set? And how do you kind of get them to, really lock into that the way that they might with like an individual offensive type drill?
Yeah. Again, everything is broken down into game like settings. And so I don't want to say, I hate shell drill or
Okay.
just single line closeouts and things like that. Those drills are all good and there's value in those to be had somewhere. But we try to really focus on whatever it is we're doing on defense. It's because this is how we're going to do it in real gameplay.
Mhm.
So, if it is where, let's say, we're just going to throw the ball from the baseline and we want to have a guy get a good closeout, chop our feet, high hand contest, energy drill type thing. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll put rules on what the offense has to do. So again, we're working on a defensive drill where, again, we're going to try to force baseline drive. And so we'll tell the offense, you have to drive baseline here and make our guys learn how to guard the ball down to the corner or to cut the drive off at the lane line. Or sometimes we'll tell offense the opposite. We'll say, look, they're going to force you to the baseline sideline. We need you to fight over the top to get to the middle of the floor as best as you can. And so any of our individual defensive drills that we do, it's all still geared towards into what our team concept is. Again, today we worked on a drill where, balls on one side of the floor unguarded, and we've had, you're on the helpline as if your player's on the weak side of the floor. We send that offensive player with the ball. He picks a random number of dribbles. Let's say it's 4-pound dribbles. After his fourth dribble, he attacks the lane, and forcing that guy who's on the rim line to be able to jump outside the lane and wall up the drive. And so, even though it may not seem like he's getting a ton of like intense defensive reps, he's getting that mental concept of, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do in this situation. And we feel like that's almost more important than, foot speed drills and things like that, is putting the guys in situations for how do I guard in our concepts and what we do in a very broken down sense. And so that's probably our biggest thing of what we try to do.
So what's really interesting about your answer is one of the things that I think is been really beneficial, and I'll let you kind of expound upon this, is that, the mental side of having your guys be put in those intentional situations where they have to react to a situation or respond to a situation. Those game-like situations that you mentioned seem to be very valuable to you, and I can definitely see why, because guys there's so many situations that are out there that a player may potentially face that you don't necessarily want them to encounter that situation for the first time in a game. So to kind of intentionally put them in those type of situations, it seems to me is something that really helps them build up that mental side of understanding what's they should be doing defensively.
Yeah, for sure. And working on all aspects of that, like challenge your players, put them in tough situations. Again, especially this time of year, if they're failing in drills, not understanding a defensive concept, it's okay right now. You've still got a couple months before it really matters. And so, yeah, putting them in tough situations is great. And then also still making sure you mix in times where they do see that success, because like I said earlier, for you to get players to buy in on anything, offensive concept, defensive concept, they've got to see that it works. And so that's a big part of it as well, is, positive feedback, making sure that we're telling them, you did a great job here because X, Y, and Z, and, still doing that while challenging them.
Well, that's something that I'm glad you mentioned. I think I can speak about me personally, right? Like I want to be a perfectionist. I want everything to be executed a certain way and be perfect. And, I think as a coach, we're never satisfied, and we can always critique or nitpick or pick apart something that wasn't quite the way that it's done. But, to your point, that could be like demoralizing. And if players feel that they're never really quite doing anything right, like they're not going to be as excited or maybe potentially as bought in. They'll do the best that they can, but if they have in their mindset that anything that they do is never going to be good enough and they're never going to get that positive feedback, like that could be something that could really demoralize a team and really, show in those crunch time moments when maybe the confidence isn't there when you really need it to be, because they've just been critiqued and nitpicked the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And even as a coach, you're going to see some failures in there as well. Like as you're saying that, an instance came to mind where a couple years ago we were working on specifically ball screen defense and how we're going to guard it within our no middle concepts. And we had guys, hedging hard. That we're talking outer third ball screen, on the high side, and we're having guys fight over the top, and we get a hard hedge, and the screeners are rolling. And I'm more worried about fighting over the top of the ball screen and what the hedge looks like than I am on the pass over the top to the roller to an uncontested layup. And when we were repping that drill, we had a player where he was getting so frustrated because he was like, look, I'm getting over the top of the screen and the screener defender's helping on the hedge, but we've got nobody protecting the roll. Like this is pointless. And so I almost felt like a failure as a coach, but again, trying to get them into the mindset of, I'm not worried about that secondary action that comes from it. It's this is what we're working on, is, are you going to fight over the top of the screen, and are we going to have a good hedge and things like that. And so, you see it as a coach too, of, trying to work on things, and sometimes where you feel like it doesn't work and being demoralized in that sense. But again, trying to really focus on what the main goal is and staying to that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Coach, talk us through what are the things that you see run offensively against you? And I know that you said you're a no middle person, and that's what you stick to. So, what are those kind of concepts and the things that you kind of go over and talk to your guys to make sure that they're ready for any sort of adjustments or anything that they may see the other team run from an offensive standpoint?
Yeah, a lot of that goes into where we really start honing in on our scouting reports and breakdowns of what we do defensively, depending on what the other teams are doing. So I would say for the most part in our area, a lot of the teams, their main offense is going to be a dribble drive, 5 out, space the floor, try to create double and triple gaps and let their playmakers, get downhill and drive and kick and, things like that. And so for that concept, it again, just with reps and against a dribble drive type of offense. And then really when we start getting into the season and teams are running a lot of sets and we play in a really good high level Christmas tournament where you see some big time teams from Tennessee and Georgia and all those teams run so many different actions. And so I think that's almost more fun to coach against is when teams have a play sheet of, maybe 15 to 25 plays. And we're trying to make sure that our guys are prepared for each action
Yeah.
and also staying bought into what our concepts are. And sometimes those will change. And that's something we try to get our players to understand is that, sometimes there are going to be players where they're such a high level guy that, maybe we have to guard the ball screen a little bit different. Or, if a team's got a big who's a stud, where we might have to get into a situation where we're going to full front and we're going to try to deny post entry as much as possible instead of a 3/4 front, or maybe we're going to exit from the ball side corner where normally we don't. And so it's really just kind of getting into that scouting report breakdown is when it gets fun for me as a defense coach to do that. So
Well, that's okay. Follow up to that because I just wrote that down about, defensive mindset for a team. And this has been something that, I've really tried to emphasize and work on the past few years. And I'd be curious kind of your take on this and how this has worked for you, where you just mentioned you're going to face high level teams. You're going to face guys, in my case, girls who can just get buckets. They can create opportunities for themselves. And, about the old adage about, a good offensive play is versus, a good defense, right? Sometimes offense will win
yeah.
when those things are happening and maybe a team goes on a quick run or guys are making good shots and they just have you're going against good offensive players during a game. How do you keep your guys mentally still steady and mentally still dialed in and focused where they don't become discouraged or demoralized and they still stay focused and locked in and are still fighting through everything even if they're going up against a team with some offensive weapons on it?
Yeah, we use the phrase a lot where you don't have to be perfect; you just have to do it right. And so for us, again, we've got all of our principles of how we're going to guard, especially when you're in the season. All of those things have already been set, and
Hmm.
so even if it is, let's say there's one game where you're playing a kid who averaging 20 or what have you, and you have to make sure that anytime they come off a ball screen, we're going to double it, every single time until they get rid of it. Let's say that's our concept. We're going to stay true to that. And in timeouts and any breaks that we may have, whether it's shooting free throws and we're pulling a couple guys over to communicate it onto the floor or at halftime, we're always preaching that phrase. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to do it right. And we say that because just like you said, there's going to be nights where the offense just can't miss, right? And so it's hard as a defensive possession. You could do everything the right way, but sometimes it may not be perfect because they'll end up not a perfect stop is a score, right? And so we just try to tell them just continue doing what we're asking you to do, continue doing it the right way, and we just kind of hope that what we're doing is going to hold up and eventually those shots aren't going to fall and we're going to stay true to what it is that we're trying to accomplish on the defensive side of the floor.
Yeah, that that's a really great saying, right? That you kind of have that, perfect is the enemy of like progress and things like that, where at the end of the day, right? guys are going to score. Yeah,
Yeah.
I tell my girls, we're
Right.
not shutting anybody out here. Like
Yeah.
baskets are going to be given up, but I always try to emphasize with players, like, don't let one mistake become two, right? Don't let one mistake where somebody, got a basket on you. Now you're frustrated or discouraged. Now you make a bad play on a press break, and now you gave up another basket because you're mentally weren't in it. And I think that it sounds like you kind of have kind of a similar mentality to me, of kind of that like next play mentality of like, whatever happened in the past, it is what it is, but keep going on the next play, keep going on the next play. And that if the effort is always there, yeah, sure, players are going to make some shots, but you still have to execute the things that you need to do to make sure that if they are going to be getting baskets, like they're going to have to earn everything. And that sounds like something that's big on your culture defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say that phrase, next play. And we actually had Kermit Davis, who was a former Division I coach. He was at Ole Miss and was at Middle Tennessee State. And I think he's actually getting inducted to the Middle Tennessee State Hall of Fame this weekend. I think I saw on his social media. He vacations down in our area or frequents down in our area. And so we actually had him come in and talk to our guys last year in the day of our district championship game. And he used that phrase of next play speed, and his conversation was a lot about every play has a lifeline, and as soon as that play ends, it's important to mentally reshift and get on to, okay, now what's the next play, like what's the next mindset. And so we use that phrase a ton in the district tournament and in our regional game, next play speed. And again, we would have a great defensive possession and a guy scores it, and a player might look over at the bench like, well, what am I supposed to do, or what have you. And it's always trying to get that next play speed mindset. And and like you say, you talked about trying to make sure that you continue doing what you're supposed to do throughout the game. And that's kind of what last year it didn't completely work out. Like I said, we lost by one in a tough regional game last season, but we gave up two really big quarters in the second and third quarter. We gave up 14 and 16 points, where for us that's a big quarter. Like our goal is to try to hold teams to 10 or under is our goal. And so we give up 2 15 16 point quarters, things like that. And again, trying to get our guys to just stay true to what we do. And we ended up with the fourth quarter, we held them to 2 points and gave ourselves a chance to win it, and ended up losing by 1. But again, that kind of was a perfect image of what that looks like, about continuing to do what the coaches are asking you to do, or continue to buy into that concept, and eventually it'll pay off. So.
Yeah. That brings me up something great that I want to ask here before we hit our concluding segment. Is I do want to ask about like your success criteria, right? Like there's obviously what's on the scoreboard and things of that nature, but are there things that either you're looking for on a stat sheet, or things that you're looking for maybe on the eye test that let you know, like, okay, this was successful defensively. We had a good defensive effort, a good defensive outing today, or this isn't acceptable. These are things that we need to clean up. What are kind of your metrics that you kind of use and kind of communicate with your players to kind of give them sort of a grade, so to speak, on how the defensive effort was?
Yeah, we chart almost everything. And if we don't chart it in live gameplay, we do it when we watch film. And so we've got a coach. We've two of our coaches on staff that are on the bench. Like we might say one of them is going to chart defensive breakdowns. Again, anything that goes against what we're teaching our guys to do. And then we might have another coach who's charting transition layups, offensive rebounds, anything like that we're allowing for the other team. And so we try to chart all of that stuff as best as we can, and also keep notes of what it is that happened. So, part of it is almost instant feedback. Let's say, we go down into the locker room and we're down 8 at the half, and one of our assistant coaches calls out in the locker room that we've had 2 possessions where we went under on a ball screen and they made both shots, or we have one possession where we have a drive and help sides late to get there, or we stop initial drive and we don't have help to helper. A lot of times, and the guys like seeing it, where we'll tell them you're down 8 and we had 6 defensive breakdowns. They scored on 3 of them. And there's a big difference in the game right there. And so we try to give them almost instant feedback on that stuff. And then again in practice, trying to make sure that, there's some nights and it as a coach where, again, maybe you're on offense that night, right? And so there's nothing the other team can really do. You're going to beat them because your offense looks so good. We also try to make sure that we're humble enough to look at our mistakes and tell them it may have been good enough tonight, but at some point it won't be good enough. Like just because you got away with doing X, Y, and Z in this game does not mean that the next night out you can do the same thing and still get the same reward. So that's another thing that we try to do as well, is constantly focusing on what are we supposed to be doing. And if we don't see it, then like we said, we chart it and we talk about it and we try to continue to teach that.
I think one of the nice things about that too, and I'll let you kind of add on to that or speak to that if you wish, is that guys know that like you're not saying things that are like baseless if they didn't execute something the right way, that you can't just as a coach, you can't necessarily get away with just saying like, oh, our effort was, poor, or effort wasn't necessarily there. Like you have stats, you have data, you have things to back it up, things that they could see, whether and be like, look, like this is what the stats say that we did or didn't do. So therefore, we need to make sure that we clean this up or execute this better. And I think like having that, I guess, like data driven sort of conversations or showing it to your guys lets them know like, okay, like this is something that, it's the numbers are there, right? There's actual proof that we didn't, do certain things that we needed to do defensively. And so, I can't argue with it because that's what the numbers say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's huge, especially for high school guys. Like they need to see it, like you said, if you just tell them, oh, we just didn't play well tonight, to them, that's okay. We didn't play well. All right, let's, one ear and out the other. But if they know why they didn't play well and where they see their mishaps for, again, whatever your concept may be, let's say you are a pack line guy, and you've got certain principles in play and you have a breakdown there, they've got to be able to see like you're giving up possessions because of this result, and so I think it's good for them to see, instead of, like you said, just kind of open-ended, we didn't play well tonight. They got a reason at this age.
Yeah, for sure. Before I hit our concluding segment, Coach, I did want to kind of give you an opportunity. We got a lot of new coaches who kind of listen and people who are kind of jumping in for the first time. And I know I've had conversations with a couple who've asked about, like, man, like I'm really, I really want to be strong defensively, but, I'm just not sure if, we're going to be able to, get a defense in time, or we're really going to be able to execute it the right way. And I feel like we're going to make a lot of mistakes. Like I've had at least two of those conversations over the past couple weeks. What advice would you give to a coach who's maybe kind of starting out, who's a little bit, just kind of nervous about putting in a defense and is, kind of worried about whether or not like the defense they put in is going to get the job done or not?
Yeah. Again, I guess the easiest thing that I could say is just don't be afraid to fail. Like find something that you believe in is key. Like if you're a coach and you're indifferent about, okay, let's run a 3-2 zone this year, like just because it's different, you get an odd guard front. Like if you're not really passionate about it yourself as a coach, it's going to be hard to sell it to a bunch of teenagers or college player. It doesn't matter what level you're at. And so I would say to those coaches, again, kind of getting a job late or uncertain of what they want to do, I would say find whatever that defense is that you're really passionate about and what you would like to see for your program, and go ahead and just establish it and try to be as good as you can with it now. I don't know what, most coaching situations are. I don't hear it too often, at least in our area, where a coach gets fired for a lack of winning games or what have you. And so to me, it's almost like, think about the program. And even if you're not going to be as successful in that first year in doing it, maybe it'll catch on, or, again, you get people that are going to buy into the type of defense you're going to play. And then you start seeing those little successes within it. And then that's when you start getting your players to really buy in. But to me, yeah, I know it sounds a little plain, but yeah, just don't be afraid to fail. Like find something you love or what you want to try to implement with your team. And like you said, if you're not super successful early on, just know that hopefully that's okay. And at some point, maybe you'll start seeing some success. But
Yeah, no, that's well said. I think that to that point, right, of like whatever it is that you want to do, like be all in on it, right? And if you know, and if it doesn't work, at least you know that it doesn't work because you went all in on it and tried it the best you can. Like I think of your experience that you mentioned about like pack line, like you went all in on it and it was something that you worked and did, but it didn't end up working. And you kind of know
Yeah.
that like you tried it to the best of your ability. There's kind of, and you gave it everything you had, but it just wasn't working. And so you were able to completely kind of put that aside and put something else in because you were able to, fully see that this isn't what our team needs. So that's okay. Let's do this and now be all invested in the no middle that you're running right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to scratch something. If you have to. We tried a couple years ago. We tried running Syracuse's 2-3 zone, and it's a hard concept to understand out of their rotations and things like that. And we worked on it for probably 2-3 weeks maybe, and it just didn't work. Like it didn't work for us. And so yeah, I mean, and this was leading into the season, and so we had spent
Yeah.
some time on a defense that wasn't going to work for us, and we looked at each other as a staff and we're like, we got to move on. We got to go to something else, and just try to go to the next thing and hope it works out for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, don't be afraid to pull the plug if it's just not working. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions I ask every guest, and so I'll start here with this first one. Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a specific moment from your coaching career that you think by sharing our listeners would be able to learn from?
I would say probably the biggest thing that I've learned as a coach, and still as a younger coach, only this is my sixth year here at South Walton as a head coach, so I still have a lot of experience to do. But in our short 6 years, we've found that trying to make sure that we're putting more of an emphasis and pride ourselves onto getting your players to just be better people, better teammates, better students. And I think at times, and it's easy to do, and we're not perfect at it, and we still do it as well, where especially in the season, you get so wrapped up in wins and losses. And I think throughout that process of the season, you kind of lose that ownership of, are we still being good teammates, and are you doing the right stuff, and are you just a good person? Like, you lose that whenever you're chasing these wins and losses and you're letting that affect you. And we've had seasons where I'm not going to say I was glad by any means that the season ended, but we've had years where as a coaching staff, you get on a bus after losing a game, and you're so frustrated, and you're scratching your head like, how do we get this thing figured out? And we're so worried more so on the wins and losses, and less about, all right, what's going on with our players, and it seemed like those years, maybe we had a little bit more division in the locker room, and some fracturing there and things like that. And so really just the last 2.5 years, we put a big emphasis on just being better people, better teammates, better students, and trusting that in doing those things, the wins will come. And so far it's worked. Like I said, we've had two very successful seasons the last 2 years. We've had the only two district championships on the boys' side in school history. Scratching at 20 wins both seasons, being able to play in a regional game both of those last seasons. And so as we're getting better on the floor, like I said, I think that's a big thing that hopefully coaches can take is sometimes, again, let's not worry about what we're doing on the floor, and more worried about the kids that you're coaching and trying to get them to just be better teammates and things like that. I think we'll go a long way.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, definitely. I've been unfortunately in that situation too, coach, where you get really frustrated after a loss and you kind of get that tunnel vision and kind of lose sight of the players as people themselves because you're just so wrapped up in the game and everything like that I think it's really good to make sure you're taking that step back and just gathering yourself and making sure that you keep focusing on the players that you're working with too, because that they need you there, and you need to be keeping them as people also on the forefront of your mind. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
to wrap up, Coach, I give every guest what I call a 60-second soapbox. And I kind of feel bad because you just gave a really eloquent point there right at the end. So hopefully you don't mind sharing something else. But I like to kind of use this as an opportunity to kind of let you get out a closing thought, a final idea, a closing message. You can take it anywhere that you want, basketball wise, coaching wise, whatever. It's your soapbox after all. So, Coach, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor and let you take it from here.
Yeah. So again, I see it already as a young coach. I would say my soapbox is, as a coach, don't stop being a student of the game. I see it so often where teams are so set in what they do, and coaches really that have been doing it for a long time. Like, I understand you're bought into what you do and you believe in what you do, but sometimes you're going to have years where you just don't have those types of kids to run what you may have ran in the past, or you just kind of fall back on, this is what we do because this is what I know, and almost because it's easy to you. So I always would like to try to challenge coaches to constantly learn and implement new things. Obviously, as the game of basketball is always changing and evolving, I almost feel like you're doing a disservice to players when you're not learning and adapting to the change of the game. And again, just trying to have some humility there, and like we talked about, being able to scratch things when it's not working. But yeah, that's my biggest thing is I see coaches a little too often where they're maybe not having some success, but they're just so set in their ways, and not only wins and losses kind of thing, but players don't enjoy playing for it sometimes. And that's probably my biggest thing is just don't ever stop trying to learn and implement new things.
Yeah, that growth mindset, right? That idea that I've heard coaches talk about, I've even heard about that in clinics, right? Once you feel like you know everything about coaching, it's time to get out. Like once you feel like you got all the answers.
And none of us do. I mean,
No.
none of us, you can be having a conversation with anybody, even players, you can sometimes have a conversation with the player and learn something from them that hadn't crossed your mind, or, you could be around somebody that maybe you think they know a lot more than you, and you mentioned something. So yeah, there's never an end to learning.
No, definitely not. Coach, I really want to thank you for being able to come on here and talk about your defense, talking about getting your guys bought into defense, your no middle and everything. I know that probably just scratched the surface of what we could talk about here in an hour, but there was a lot that I really appreciate that you shared, and just exciting to kind of hear about the journey and the turnaround and the great things that are happening at South Walton. So appreciate you, Coach, for coming on, sharing about defense, and best of luck. I know that your guys are hungry here for another successful season coming up. So I wish you all the best of luck and go shut some teams down this year, Coach. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. Would love to join again, and best of luck to you as well this season.
Appreciate it, and appreciate all of you listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.